This is the Unscripted Climb, the podcast where business owners talk about stuff that doesn't make it to motivational speeches. I'm Chris Beecham, founder of Perch merch, where we put your logo on things people might actually keep. I co-host this with Natalie McCauley, founder of Oh Hello Agency. She makes brands look like they have their act together. If you want a free merch or brand audit, we do that too. No pressure. Just don't blame us if we're honest. Go to theunscriptedclimb.com. Let's get going.
So excited to be here with Chris, of course, my co-host, and Nicole Biscuiti, who is here with us to talk all things entrepreneurship and to tell us the story of her innovative, design-forward company, Chesty. I have had the pleasure of knowing Nicole for the past couple of years now. I think it's been 2 years that I was introduced to you. Is it 2? I mean, maybe I'm a little off. It might have felt like 2. On the first conversation I ever had with Nicole, thought this is a dynamic, just star of a person. I mean that. I've always loved your energy, loved, your values, your vision for what the world can do and for what you can do in it. So, so we're really excited to have her. I'd love to just, lead with the preface and the context that, Chesty's not your only company and you are a multifaceted entrepreneur. So why don't you just give us a quick high-level overview of everything you do today? I know Chesty has its own journey, and then I want to get into the story.
Yeah, I think that we, for purposes of this conversation, can start with the end, which is Chesty is currently closed. And that was the hardest decision I ever had to make, because I thought that selling my business for $30 million was the only definition of success. And then I chose myself. I ended up going a completely different route, which we'll get into. And I closed my business March. So now we're just over a year ago. And I closed it on our 10-year anniversary because I just wanted to go in a new direction. And I felt like the legacy that I built was sufficient. I finally got to a place mentally where I felt like the legacy I built was it. And I was okay
and it was a legacy, and it is still a legacy to today. The bras are probably the best sports bra I've ever owned.
Thank you.
Can you start off by telling us just what is the company and how you got into it?
The Chesty is the first, and for a long time, the only patented sports bra with built-in collarbone protection. There were a couple of brands that came on the market doing what we did. They filtered out, but we lasted for a decade, and we sold our patented sports bras to women who trained with a barbell, because every time you land that barbell on your chest and it sits on your neck in the front rack position, all the knurling in that beautiful metal bar is scraping up your skin and your collarbone. So I invented something to solve that problem, and it happened really organically I was competing at an event in Miami, and it was an outdoor event in Bayfront Park, right on the bay. It was gorgeous, but all the barbells were sitting in the sun baking. So as soon as I touched it with my hands, I was like, this is going to be a rough workout. And then after doing, 20 minutes of shoulder to overhead, I literally looked like I got attacked.
Insane.
It was insane. So mid-workout, I take my shirt off and I stuff it into the straps of my sports bra like a backwards cape. And I looked at my judge and I was like, yeah, sorry, I just needed to take a little time out for wardrobe change, because I literally was afraid I was going to start bleeding. And that was my aha moment. So that was a weekend competition. I went back to the gym on, the following week. I took a pair of my knee sleeves that we typically use for, putting on our knees when we're squatting. I cut them in half. I sewed them into a rash guard because it was the tightest shirt that I owned. And then I started front squatting with that. And I was like, this isn't the cutest thing in the world, but it's working. And that was, 12 and a half years ago.
Huh. So you found a problem. Or you had a problem, you found a solution. They always say that's, where the best ideas and the best businesses come from, is solving a problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so how do you go from that to patenting it and then start selling it? Is it just a thing? Okay, I'm new here, not just to bras, but is it just for weightlifters?
You know, it evolved over
Okay.
the course of 10 years. I mean, we even launched a shrug, which was this kind of like thing that it was an accessory piece that you put on over your tank top or shirt or sports bra or whatever. And it was just like an add-on thing. That happened 10 years later. But initially, they weren't even sports bras, Chris. They were actually shirts, which is why the company is called Chesty, Tee, because it was like a chest guard in a t-shirt. Love the play on words. No one really cares. They were just like, give me that.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I launched with 3 styles, and the one that most resembled a sports bra, of course, the skimpiest, the cutest looking one, the tank top, the one with the crisscross back, showed a little skin. That was the one that sold immediately. And when I was doing my kind of like calls to, customer service calls, customer satisfaction, whatever you want to call it, to every person who purchased, because it wasn't a lot, the list wasn't long. I called every single person and I said, hey, how's it going? Wanted to see how you're liking your Chesty. Immediately, every time I spoke to the people who bought the one that I just talked about, the one that was skimpy that looked like a sports bra, they said the same thing. Every single person said, I really love it. It's protecting, it's doing what it needs to do. It's protecting my collarbone in the workouts. But I have to tell you, it has like literally no support for the girls. And I'm like, literally dumbfounded because I'm thinking, what? Well, I said, you're not wearing a sports bra underneath it? And every single person, first silence, and then they said, what? I thought this was a sports bra.
Huh.
An aha moment. We now make sports bras. Chesty's not making shirts anymore. Now we make sports bras. And that happened, like a year and a half into it. But getting to that place to launch that first run of those 3 bras, it went by really fast. But when I look back at it, I mean, it really was an eternity of work just crammed into about a year. It was meeting with every seamstress who looked at me like I'm actually crazy because I'm trying to explain this thing. And they work in these high-end dress shops and they're used to, fixing zippers and putting buttons back on and doing hem work. Every single person was like, what? You want me to take this piece of neoprene and make it this and put it here? And it was a long journey in that way. I probably met with no less than 8 seamstresses until I finally found the right person. And the right person was an individual I actually produced fashion shows with when I was working in the PR department at Bloomingdale's.
Oh, wow.
She became a really good friend of mine, Susan Mosey, who I actually named as my co-inventor on the patents when we eventually filed, because she helped me design these from start to finish. And we were sitting in my office one day working on a fashion show, and it was hot. This was in Florida. Even in your inside in the air conditioning, if you're walking around, you're working up a sweat. I'll tell you that. So I said, is it all right? This is like very corporate setting. We're supposed to be professional. Times have changed now because I basically live in active wear, but back then we had to live in suits.
Yes.
And I said, would it be all right if I take, my jacket off? It wasn't like I was naked underneath. I had clothes, but it showed my arms. And this was like, very corporate world. She said, yeah, I don't care. It's fine. So I take my jacket off, I throw it around my thing, and she's looking at me like, I don't know, like a bikini, like I just came out in a bikini for like a fit competition. And she's like, what do you do? So that opened up the whole conversation, which I really kind of kept separate. I didn't really talk in the fashion world about what I was doing in the fitness world.
Yeah.
And so I told Susan, and we became friends. And eventually, I told her about Chesty, about what I was trying to do. And she said, girl, I didn't know she was a designer by trade. I just thought she produced fashion shows. She goes, girl, this is going to be easy. I'm going to do this. We're going to do this together. And that was like 15 years ago.
It just goes to show, though, like you literally have to open yourself up, take your jacket off, and tell people what it is you do if you want someone to support you. Let that be the sign.
Let that be the
Yeah,
sign.
you're right.
And it's true. And what you just said, Natalie, is true for everything in life. You are going to get zero help if you ask zero people. And you're going to get zero ideas if you're not putting these concepts out there. And collaboration and community is completely what built my brand. At the time that we closed, which we ended up closing on our 10-year anniversary, March 11th, 2024. On the day that we closed, we had been successfully sold in 72 countries, literally manufacturing all across the globe. The amount of sports bras that we sold in just this one style, the Tiffany, they're all named after women in the sport. It was honestly unbelievable if you look at the metrics of it. And that happened building a small brand out of, my mom's spare bedroom in her house in Boynton Beach, Florida. It's wild.
Wow.
It's wild. Yeah, to think about that.
Okay. I'm just, what do you mean? So you just, okay, let's go to the closing part. I want to go back to the beginning too, but I'm really intrigued by this closing thing. Like, what do you mean? You just closed your doors and you were done?
Yeah. Well, it didn't happen like that. I'm sure from the consumer perspective, it probably felt like that.
You can no longer get them.
You can no longer get a
Okay.
But we did, to be fair, I gave the customers fair warning. I told my community in October, we started having this kind of really interesting conversation about that Chesty's changing. Changes are coming. Now, sometimes people think that means growth, and that's okay. In March, when we announced that we were closing, it coincided with a closing sale. And I made these available at a price that they had never been available at. So if price was a thing, price aversion was not going to keep you from getting a Chesty. And this was after I donated $50,000 worth of brand new Chesties to a nonprofit organization called Bras for Girls.
Love it.
And this is a nonprofit that bridges the gap between girls who literally do not compete in sports because of their changing bodies and lack of access to good support that they need. And we sent them a shipment that we needed pallets to send out. So it felt good for me to do that. And then I had enough to sell to empty out the warehouse. And, it wasn't exactly a fire sale because I still wanted to keep the brand essence high. And I didn't want, to sell a sports bra of that kind for $10, but you could get them for 75% off maybe, which is huge. So if price was a problem before then, you could get that. And we gave them a lot of notice. We emailed people, say you had a gift card. Now would be the time to use it. So it wasn't like we just all of a sudden no. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we made social media posts. We sent out emails. I personally posted about it, but yeah, getting to that place, Chris, I mean, it felt probably to some people like it came out of the blue, but this had been something I was struggling with for 2 full years.
And let's talk about that because, whatever you're willing to share, obviously, but I know you to be an extraordinary entrepreneur, and I think it would be really helpful for anyone looking to go into athleisure or fitness or retail to understand in the 2 years leading up to Chesty, what were some of the issues you experienced that were huge blockers to its growth?
Well, the changing climate, manufacturing, supply chain. We were manufacturing in Southeast Asia. Honestly, I feel for small businesses in today's climate, that are manufacturing in Southeast Asia because of, all of the challenges and changes that are making really strong implications on your bottom line and your margin. I mean, we had to we came out of the gate when I first started, I got really good advice. And one piece of that advice from a guy who had been doing business in the industry forever, when we were trying to set our prices, he said, set it high now. You can always lower your price. You are going to have a shitty time trying to sell the same product at a higher price later. And so I did. I set it very high at a price with those first three that I was like uncomfortable with. It ended up being great because people would come up to us at events and say, I saved up. I'm so excited. I'm getting this Chesty. To some people, it's fine. It's a $64 sports bra, but not to everybody. Some people had to save up for it. So back to your question about in those 2 years leading up to it, all of these financial matters came into play. And I was also in the middle of a strong capital raise. I was traveling. I mean, the amount of people in suits holding cocktails that I had to present my idea to was wild. I mean, I remember, my brother at the time, he's in the counterintelligence community. Chris, he's also my business partner at Chesty.
Got it.
So that's why I'm bringing him up. He joined the company 3 years after I started it, and he was like, I don't know how you're doing this alone, but I'm joining you. Thank God, because he did all the stuff that I just either couldn't do, wasn't very good at, or didn't want to do.
I love that.
It was great. Nobody wants to touch sales and use tax, especially in the state of Florida. My brother did it for us. Thank you. Love you, Scott. Great. But he had a vast network, high profile people. I mean, I remember there was one competition, or not competition. I felt like it was a competition, like a pitch competition. Same thing to me, right? But at the end, instead of winning the pitch competition and getting a trophy, you get a check. But we were going
even better.
Basically, which is better. We were going to investor presentations, and we were on a plane, and my brother's literally sitting next to me with cue cards, practicing. I am the polar opposite of that. I am not going to prepare or practice anything because it's not going to be the same when I say it for real, live, and it's probably going to sound rehearsed. But he's a very different type of person. So, the amount of times that we had to go in front of these high profile people and explain what we did is fine. But when it got to a point where, all right, fine, you go past the presentation, you're signing NDAs, you're getting serious, you're getting pretty close to getting money. And by the way, we did end up taking on investment dollars prior to this. It really wasn't enough to manage the type of change that was happening in the industry at the time. It really wasn't, because we grew, like many companies grew during COVID, exponentially. I thought we were printing money. It was obnoxious how much money we were bringing in. The sales were astronomical. People,
we're at home shopping.
They were at home shopping. They were working out at home because we're at the home gyms that started popping up and the at-home workout protocols, at-home coaching skyrocketed during COVID. And guess what? So did all the gym equipment and the gym apparel and all of the stuff that goes along with that. So we really didn't see the slowdown that would come after that. We bought all this inventory. We were ordering now at this pace, except it started slowing down.
Yeah.
And now we're getting orders coming in that were at this pace, but we're nap time, and it didn't match up. So now I'm having to answer to, okay, we have investment dollars. What are we doing there? But we needed to ramp up on marketing. It just became this beast that started running me. And I was so stressed out and overwhelmed and unable to make everybody happy. And it literally changed my chemical makeup. I was depressed and didn't know it. I was depressed for probably a solid year, maybe longer, to the point where towards the end being like the end of that 2-year period just before I closed,
Yeah.
my two girlfriends one of them drove from Orlando to Boynton to I'm just in town. I'm like, okay, great. Let's have coffee. No, it wasn't a casual coffee. It was a straight up intervention. And my two girlfriends sat me down and they were just like, you're not okay. Not a question.
Oh, you're going to make me cry.
Oh, believe me, I was bawling as soon as they started talking. You're not okay. Do you think you're okay? That's when I started crying. Because I was like, well, no, I'm definitely not okay. I was so thin. And like the weird thing about this, Chris, maybe it's different being a guy, but Natalie will appreciate this. There's being thin when you want to be thin, and there's being thin when you really don't. And I kept getting all these comments, when people comment on women's bodies, it's always like, what are we going to get from a reaction? It's like, oh my God. At first it was like, oh my God, what are you leaning out? Are you on a cut? What's going on? Oh, what do you do? What do you eat? It was just a daily, constant reminder that I'm unwell. And I didn't want to say, I'm just really stressed out. But that was the truth. If I'm being honest, stranger who just asked me for my workout routine and if I eat chocolate, I was like, if I'm being honest, no, I can barely eat. I'm nauseous all the time. Like all the time. I can hardly sleep. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'll go on vacation with my partner and be in Barcelona and be sobbing, and I don't know why. Well, it's because I'm gearing up. That was 6 months before I closed. And, and I'm not saying any of this to scare people away from starting their own business because I don't regret any of it. I'm just saying, thank God for my two friends because up until that point, I had no awareness of it. I think awareness is really important. And then how are you going to handle it? So after that, I started taking a really hard, serious look at my life and reevaluating. Because up to that point, you go through these valuations and you have people telling you what they think your company's worth. And candidly, I started getting really pissed off because every time I walked out of a meeting where I didn't get the answer that I wanted and I wasn't going to get the money that I thought I desperately needed to grow my business to the next level, it felt like failure. And then that started tying into my self-worth. And every time I had a potential investor say, yeah, I can't quite find the numbers. Yeah, we can't quite get there. We can't quite get there.
Yeah, at some point it's just like, what the F, right? What the
Right.
F?
And I was living in that for 2 years. For 2 years with, a burn rate that was pretty high. We were in a 5,000 square foot warehouse. We had employees. I had a 13-person team, thank God they weren't all full-time employees who relied on me for their living paycheck, because if that was the case, my depression would have been a whole other, I would have been hospitalized probably, honestly, because I cared that much about these people. These people were like my family. So I cared deeply about what that meant, what every change meant. And that is ultimately why I had to close, because, people can very non-emotionally just take a look at your business and say, oh, well, you need to do this, this, and that. And I'm like, well, no, no, that will devastate me. That will devastate people. Well, what's going to happen to this? Well, Chris is like, well, can you get Chesties anywhere? No, that's literally what I was thinking. Well, where are they going to get their Chesties?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, looking back, there's a couple of things that come to my mind. One is, and you and I've talked about this privately, and I think you'd feel pretty comfortable saying this, you almost work yourself out of an upsell or a cross sell because your product lasts so long. Like your product, I have 6 bras from her. And
you're going to have them for the next 10 years.
I don't need
very well.
There's no issue with these bras. I have washed them. I have left them in the dryer. I've taken them out to dry. I've done atrocious things to these bras. I'm joking, but there's no issue. I don't need another one.
Yeah.
I mean, and I only have 6 because I collaborated with her and she was nice enough to give me some out of the fire sale. I really if I had only gotten 2, I would be fine. They look amazing. They make me look great. They make the girls look great. So am I right on that? I think if I had to problem diagnose that, and it's such a weird thing to say to you, it's almost like you made a product too good.
Well, you're like the 15th person to say that. And it started happening within, my circle of advisors. And the suggestion simply wasn't, well, make them shittier. No one's going to say that. But the suggestion was, okay, well, we either need to sell more to new markets or we need to make new products.
More cross sells.
So we started making new products. And when I tell you I spent $50,000 just on development in 1 year, I'm not exaggerating, because everything that we did was at the highest level. We hired the best designers and we made them with machinery that was impact tested, that was temperature tested. I mean, there's a reason that people use neoprene wetsuits to surf in extreme climates. This is like protecting your skin. There were all of these things that went into it, and we didn't even really spend the time, energy, or money really to even talk about that part of the story, because we were just so in it, just trying to get it out to that basic first line customer. We started making singlets for weightlifting that were USAW approved. Those are the ones that the athletes that compete in the snatch and the clean and jerk, they have to wear a singlet. And so those have to be designed specifically to regulations. They have to be a certain number of inches. It can't be close to your knee, or they can't have certain things. Like you can't have certain parts of your body exposed. I won't bore you with the regulations, but it was specific. And then we came out with a men's version of the Chesty called the Defender.
Love that name. So good.
Defender. This is a full shirt that just had the collarbone protection in it. It was moisture wicking fabric. It literally looked like a Nike Pro shirt. It did. It had the ventilation panels in the back, because obviously like neoprene gets hot when you're sweating, especially if you're in like Texas, California, Florida. If you're training outside in a warm weather climate, it's going to get real hot around your neck. Combine that with the location, you feel like you can't breathe. So we put ventilation in the back of the shirt. Then we came out with the shrug, which is that item that I mentioned to you. It's like gear. You put it over your head. You can wear it on top of whatever else you have. What was interesting about that is that we were really trying to get into new markets that may have already had existing apparel relationships, specifically collegiate athletes. Oh, sorry, we can't talk to you. We're with Nike for apparel. No problem. We're gear. We're not apparel. We tried every angle. It just wasn't enough, and it wasn't fast enough. And by that point, our burn rate was so high. It was just like, it was
collapsing.
It was a freight train that was on a track that was collapsing.
Hey, listeners, quick break. Listen, we started this podcast because we actually like talking to other business owners. Whether you're crushing it or just Googled how to fire someone without crying, we've probably been there. If you ever want to connect for merch, branding help, or just swap war stories, check out perch-merch.com or ohhelloagency.com. No pressure. We'll even do a free brand or merch audit if that's your thing. All right, back to the episode.
Question about focus and how hard it can be to find your niche and your target audience. Like, I wonder if, looking back, because the Chesty also has an amazing Instagram, you built it to like 50,000 followers, which is so hard to do.
Thank you. And didn't pay for any of them.
And you didn't pay for a single one. I know this. And you built it in part because you were really, really about CrossFit. And we both know building an Instagram that high, it comes down to niching down into a community. However, did it get to the point where you're like, I got to be selling to people other than CrossFit? And you had to think about, well, who is that? And how do we get to them? And what was that strategy? Because if your overhead is so high, it's almost like, Nordstrom doesn't just sell to one audience. They have 25 different audiences. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't regret that we started out niche and stayed niche because the product is niche. You you actually what we did to combat that and to basically sell to regular people who just needed a sports bra. I don't do weights. I don't
Ugh,
need that.
you need weights, ladies.
Side note, PS, you do need to lift
P.S.
weights.
If you're saying you don't need weights, your bone strength and bone density needs weights. So use them. I do Pilates and I do weights. You need weights. Every woman needs weights. I'm so tired of this rhetoric.
Oh my gosh,
Okay,
girl.
so
Back to you.
So, no, but she's right. That's another conversation, but she's correct. So we started making the Chesties with removable collarbone protection. So you can have both, or you can have none. You can have the Chesty style in all of our fun patterns and prints and the tropical vibes that, we were known for, but you don't have to use the collarbone protection if you don't want to. The amount of reinvention that happened in this 10-year process is honestly kind of mind blowing. So I don't regret that we were niche, but we did try to do a lot of other things to gain the regular customer and to expand. I also, for example, launched an entirely new, different activewear line. It was called Every, EVREE, Bold Basics, which were the basics, leggings, sports bras, shirts for the gym, but bold, fashionable. I mean, our most basic had like tiger flocked mesh lining in it. Like it was wild, but still, it's a basic. That costs money. That costs time, energy, and resources on top of the money. And then and it's all timing. This was at a time when the activewear market was so saturated. You had to spend a small fortune to get the same amount of eyeballs on your product that we were just getting literally almost for free. At one point, our person who was running our ads, he was like, "This is unbelievable." This was like back in the heyday when we thought we were like, printing money. He's like, I can't believe you're getting an 8 ROAS on the first carousel ad that we're running. We haven't even done A/B testing yet. And I'm like, is that good? He's like, yeah, that's really good. And then we grew from there. But again, it's almost like we grew too fast in some categories and then we were way behind in others.
It's fascinating to hear you talk about it because it's so complex.
yeah,
It is. And the money raising aspect of it was a whole other animal that most small businesses don't ever anticipate needing to be in. And I lived in that space. And when I tell you that I stopped doing all the things that I loved and I stopped having exposure to all the things that made me fall in love with the business. And then I was living in Excel spreadsheets and I was like, why? I don't like this. I don't want to do this.
I do want to pick your brain about like that. So as a business owner, that intrigues me. Like, how do you get those meetings with possible investors? How do you get to that point where you're like, okay, if I want to scale, I need some help. Where do you find them? How did you set up those meetings? Like, how did that whole world work?
Yeah, it's a really interesting, intricate, and also sometimes frustrating process. But there are a couple of different ways you can go about it. And I did both simultaneously. You can go the accredited investor route. That is going to be like the most professional way to do it. It's setting up your company profile, creating, the VDRs, the virtual data rooms. It's joining, which sometimes means paying to be a part of these like networking communities, which will match you with accredited investors and doing all of that. And then there's the kind of like more rogue way, which actually was more successful for me. I think it depends a lot on where you're physically located and where you're doing your networking, because I was connected to our investor in the South Florida market where, let's be honest, a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs, and even CEOs want to put their businesses in Florida for, tax benefits and things of that nature. So I think that I was a little bit fortunate in that way that I was surrounded by a lot of people with money that were looking to invest that money in businesses. And I just happened to be like in that network at the right time. One of the people who didn't invest in my business, but was providing me with a lot of mentorship. His name is Tom. He started Salt Armor Company, SA Company. I mean, he sold his business for $150 million, I think. Something crazy. And it was a t-shirt business. He started in his garage that he was like printing. He was doing graphic, screen printing in his garage, and then just grew this business to, through influencer marketing, PS. And so he was helping me, and we were trying literally everything. I mean, when I tell you that I actually had to start doing influencer marketing and hated it, did that too. But back to your fundraising question, you have to truly look at it as a job. It's a role. Business development was a role that we actively took on. And our leadership team, me, my brother, and our business development person, Petro, who was with us from the beginning, who was extremely valuable. We would have meetings weekly. Where we are, what updates do we need on our deck? Who did we add? I was sending out a pitch deck at least a couple times a week. My brother was driving down to Miami to go to these like financial investment meetings. I mean, Petro was talking to everyone in his network. This is like something that if you're going to go that route, you really have to take it very seriously. And you have to, not that you have to do something huge every week, but you have to be working on it every single week. And then I'll just add, once you decide to take on money, please take more than you think you need.
Okay.
A smart investor might actually look at your deck and tell you that they're going to give you more.
Agreed.
I'm going to invest, but in my experience, 200,000 is not going to cut it. You're going to run through that sooner than you think. And I need you to have a cushion because I don't want to be sitting here holding bag. I'm going to give you 4, for example. And that is the real conversation that I had with an investor. He said, I don't think you're asking for enough. I don't think you know that you need more, but you're going to need more.
Yeah. Well, obviously, yeah, he's successful. He's seen it. So we're like, okay,
Yeah.
he's not trying to throw money away. Yeah.
Right. Noted. Great. Thank you. The number's now 4.
Yeah. You know what? Let's go 5. And then as far as like back to the beginning,
Yeah.
how do you go about getting like the patent and how do you start the sales? Like, are we talking? So what year is this? So 10 years ago,
So
-1. So
2004?
14?
yes.
4. Wow.
Yes. 2014.
2004 was
Like,
way
are we
off.
talking e-commerce? Are we talking trade shows? Tell me where we went.
So I'll answer the patent stuff first because that actually chronologically happened first. Fortunately, I have had really smart advisement. I am very blessed. I grew up in a household where I watched my dad. He's had a lot of different businesses. My mom, as a single mom, ran a restaurant, was the executive director of a theater company, very business minded, still working today. So I was always around people with ideas and watching them make their ideas come to life. And that is the entrepreneurial spirit summed up, right? So when I started thinking about what I was going to need to do to make my product different, I realized very quickly that I was going to need to protect it and patent it. And I called my mom's attorney who worked with her at one of her other businesses. It was, by the way, he was working pro bono for her because it was a nonprofit theater company, of course. So that's what he did for his, contribution, his charitable donation. And he sent me to the person that ultimately ended up being our patent attorney and helping us get all of the patents that we now own.
You still have those patents, right?
We still have those patents. It was a beautiful day when my brother and I could fly up to the Northeast and walk into the U.S. Patent and Trademark Attorney's office, meet with our, I think they call them maybe investigators, something along those lines. We walked into the office that handled apparel because guess what? They have different buildings and they divide them by categorically by how they are taxed, of course.
That's phenomenally interesting.
Love it. We walk into his office. Inspector. He's an inspector. We walk into his office and he has pictures or actual product that owners have sent him of product that he has basically helped them get patented. But it's actually his job to fight the patent. It's every inspector's job to say, hey, because they're protecting law. This exists out here in the world. How are you going to be different than this pocket protector that's located on the chest? How are you going to be different than that? As one example of maybe 30 that we've had to overcome. And so it was a beautiful day when we went to the office and he said, this is getting approved.
It's amazing. And it's such an inspiring story for anyone else who wants to get something patented.
No, it was great. I bought myself a coffee mug that said patent holder. Best $12 I've ever spent.
What kind of time frame was that?
That's
from
years.
Start to finish.
Years.
Okay.
Years. And of course,
We didn't say the U.S. government was efficient, okay?
Yeah, no, that's what I've heard. That's why I asked. Like, so in the meantime, you're just waiting. There's nothing really you can do until
to speed it up. It's just submit it, work with an attorney, and wait to hear next steps.
Okay, so you get the good news.
And pay your fees.
Pay your fees.
To Uncle Sam.
Your attorney's fees. There is a patentability search, which I actually recommend doing because that's going to give you like a guideline or an outline on what already exists, so you can go a different route.
Amen.
Yep. Because you got to be new. I mean, they're not giving patents out for the same product. You've got to be different, right? So the patentability search and then your filings and then maybe your extension on filings. There is also a very strong argument for wanting to forever be patent pending. So that costs money too, because you need to and it's a strategy that some businesses employ. You want to extend as long as you can, because in that patent pending kind of time period or status, your patents are not published. And so any potential competitors are guessing at what you have or what you don't have. And so that was a strategy that we employed as well, because I already knew that I had people chasing me and I didn't want to be caught. So I would also pay to keep those files closed, if you will, in the dark, whatever, no visibility to it, until they were finally granted and published, which at that point, it's kind of like a formality, it's like, so you have a provisional period that lasts for a year, and then you go into all the other, things that I just described.
Look, clearly you are like the ultimate expert on designing a product and developing a retail brand. I mean, like, right? And she did so many cool things with Chesty. What are you doing now? What's life got in store for you? Like, you took us to the lowest of the low. You had the intervention and the
intervention. Oh, I had a very public closing of the company though, which was very cool.
Very cool. On brand.
Maybe 1 minute.
On your terms, which is kind of nice.
Thank you. And I'm very grateful for that because I obviously had a lot of time to sit and think about it.
Yep.
But honestly, it was beautiful. And now I'm in a position where I can tell other people that story and give them advice. And it's not just like, I'm like, no, I actually know.
I know.
That you need to do this, this, and that, and you need to not do that. And here's why. And I just told my very close friend in no uncertain terms that they need to extract the money from their company, and they need to sunset it now before they can't anymore. And the only reason that they took me seriously is because they know I know. So the day that I closed, I partnered with a very well-known female MC in the CrossFit space. And she has her own podcast and she has her own YouTube channel. She delivers the news of CrossFit. And so she delivered that news. And we did a huge media campaign to get the hype surrounding, like, for like a few days before we went live. It was a live Instagram. So it was like, if I cried, I was like, shit, I'm going to be crying and I can't be like, hang on, time out. Let me just redo. But I knew that was going to happen, and that's fine. And it was short and sweet. And, we announced, she let me do it, like you said, on my own terms, but she let me say the words, we are closing. And she walked us through what that's going to look like for the customer and for our community, what they can expect, what changes are coming, and what it's going to look like in the future. And that was honestly a very healing process for me.
And today, where are you now? What are you doing?
It's crazy that we're having the podcast interview today. Because
Nicole.
1 hour ago, I received my offer to join a very large company that's been in business for 20 years as their business development director.
Oh, wow. Congrats, Nicole.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Can you tell us the company?
Not yet, but we'll do a follow-up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so pumped about it.
You're going to have to text me off camera because I would love to know.
I sure will. And it's really going to be so cool because I'm going to be working with people again. I'm going to be on a team. I'm going to be selling something that I believe in that's going to help small businesses. It's going to be dope. I'm really excited.
Where can people find you, Nicole? Where can they find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they learn about you? Where can they support you?
Thank you. Well, my very professional Instagram handle is Butter and Biscuits. That's right.
I don't know how I didn't see that coming.
No one would.
Yeah.
But the Chesty is still on Instagram, alive and well. And I am going to start posting about it. I needed to take a break because Instagram is a very interesting landscape to navigate.
I prefer TikTok, to be honest.
Yeah.
I prefer watching TikToks.
So, but the Chesty on Instagram, and those are the two places that I'm kind of gonna be living for a little bit. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. This was nice. I said some things to you that I haven't actually shared ever. So yeah.
We are so grateful. If you guys find this episode valuable, which I'm sure you will because there were so many golden nuggets, please feel free to leave us a review. Send this to a friend. Go give Nicole a follow, and we'll see you next week.